In this presentation, we will set up our beginning balances for our third practice problem related to a job cost system. The beginning balances related to jobs and accounts within QuickBooks Pro, QuickBooks Desktop. Here we are in QuickBooks with our third practice problem. We currently have the open windows open. You can open the open windows by going to the view dropdown and the open windows list. We're now going to take a look at our Excel sheet to get an idea of our objective. We have these beginning balances. We want to set up these beginning balances into our system. We also want to support those beginning balances by the job costs over here. So we want to support and enter the job cost information as well. So we're going to start with the jobs, entering the materials, direct materials, factory overhead, and then we're going to adjust whatever the beginning balances need to be adjusted to get them to where they need to be. Now, as we do this, note that here we have everything grouped into direct materials in this beginning balance. We're going to try to show more detail in the job cost system and break this out. So the total should be the $14,000, but we're going to show more detail in different categories within the QuickBooks system in accordance with the items that we have set up. So let's see what that will look like. We're going to go back to the QuickBooks system, and then we're going to be setting this up with our tool of the checks. So we're actually going to be writing a check, and to set that up, we're going to have to add a new checking account. So we're going to say add a new account. It's going to be a banking account. We're going to call it a checking account. I'll just call it checking, and then I'm going to say save, and then we'll have our check that we're going to be inputting. Now, obviously, what our goal here isn't really to adjust the cash account, but we'll fix that by doing a journal entry later. We're going to use the check in order to set our jobs up, and that's going to be the major point. To do that, we're going to need the items over here. So we need the items tab. So we have the items tab. The date is going to be 12/31/19, the day before the current date that we're going to be running this for. I'm not even going to use a payee. I'm just going to go down to be able to use the items tab down below. And then within the items tab, what I'm going to do is I'm pretty much going to randomly pick our labor, our direct materials and items again to add up to basically this 14,000. So I'm going to pick these items to add up to the 14,000. So I'm going to pick here, and we're going to say that this is the cost of, let's say, 8,000. And then I'm not going to change this. So I'm going to say don't change and no, because I'm going to have a new number every time. This is going to be for job number 14. It will be billable. Then we'll go to the next item. I'm going to say this one, and then we're going to say that is going to be 5,000. And we could adjust, note the columns here as we go. We're not going to need the quantity, so that's going to give us a little more space, and we'll keep it at 5,000. This is going to be job number 14. And then the next one we'll pick here is we'll take the flooring, and we'll say this one is going to be the 1,000. And that takes us to our 14,000, which we're looking for here. So there's our 14,000. Now we could then add the direct labor here, the direct labor. And it needs to be there for the 18. So I'm going to put the 18,000, 18,000. And that's going to be job number 14 here and job number 14 up above. Oh, I don't know what happened there. Drop. That was our flooring. And then we need job number 14 here. And so we have those. And then we could pick up the overhead. I'm going to put into a generic category again, the overhead here. We're going to break out the overhead as we go later on. So I'm going to say factory overhead, or just overhead I called it. And that's going to be for the 9,000. So we'll put 9,000. And that's going to be job number 14. Okay, so that adds up to 41,000 so far. And if we go back to our Excel sheet, that's going to be our 41,000 here. So that looks good. So we're going to keep that. And then we're going to go to the second job. So we're going to say next. Let's just use the arrow up top. And I'm going to go yes. And then we're on the next job. So next job, the materials need to add up to 18,000. So we're going to do the similar kind of process here. We're going to go down, and we want to be in the items tab. And within the items tab, I'm going to do the same kind of thing. We're going to say 3,000 here, job number 15 rather than 14. And then I'm going to pick this one. This is going to be 2,000. This is going to be job number 15. And then we're going to pick the, let's say the marble. This is going to be 5,000. Job number 15. And then how far did we need to go? 18,000. We've got next the paint. We're going to say 3,000. Job number 15. And then we're going to have the plaster is going to be 2,000. And next we're going to have, let's say, the surface finishing of 3,000. This job number 15 and job number 15. Okay, and then we're going to, so that adds up to the 18,000. Next, we've got the 16,000 direct labor. So I'm going to put the direct labor, 16,000, job number 15. And then we're going to have the overhead at 8,000. So overhead, 8,000, job number 15. So that adds up to the 42,000. If I go back to our job, 42,000. So that looks good. I'm gonna go back over here and we're gonna say save and close. And okay. So save and close. Then we're gonna take a look at our report. So I'm gonna go to the reports drop down. I'm gonna go to the accounting and taxes, look at the trial balance report. Within the trial balance, I'm gonna change the dates up top from 01/01/20 to 12/31/20. And there we have the checking account, which we're going to have to adjust. That's fine. The other side's in these owner's equity. Now, if we take this back to the prior year, 19 to 12/31/19, then we see the breakout of all the cost of goods sold items that will add up to that 83,000. It's all under cost of goods sold. If we go to the profit and loss report, reports drop down, company and financial profit and loss standard. For the prior year, 2019, 01/01/19 to 12/31/19. Then we see we have the type category here, and then we have our parent category we set up, and then we have the cost of goods sold items below this. Now this is nice because what we can then see is we can say, yeah, it's all under cost of goods sold, but I want to break out my cost of goods sold, basically material items here, and then have another subcategory under the parent of cost of goods sold, but this is basically the overhead, which all we have is just this one line item where we grouped it all together. Going forward, we'll break out the overhead in a similar fashion under this category. And then if we have any other expenses that aren't related to the job, then we will have that broken out as non-cost of goods sold, and it'll be easy for us to basically track that and easier for us to tie it into our job sheets. Let's take a look at the job sheets now. If we go to the reports drop down, we go to the jobs, and then I'm going to go to the job estimate versus actual summary report. There's our summary report. We've got the 42,000 in the actual cost and the 41,000 making up the 43,000. That, of course, then if I go back to the profit and loss, ties out to the profit and loss report. So we have the total cost of goods sold, the 83,000 here. If we go to the jobs, we've got the total 83,000 here. Let's now take a quick look at the balance sheet report. If I go to the reports up top, we go to the company and financial and down to the balance sheet standard report. Then we change the date up top to, let's say, 12/31/20. Note we have the 83,000 now in equity. So it would roll out in from the income statement account, cost of goods sold, into equity. So we have to note that going forward, because when we're in the current year 2020, that's going to be our reconciling item, just as we had in the prior problem. If I then went to 2019 up here, then you'll see it's called net income, because that's tying out to the current net income, which is in basically just the cost of goods sold type of accounts in the profit and loss report. Lastly, let's take a look at another report, which is going to be the job report. Going to the reports drop down, jobs and time. Let's go to the job estimate versus actual detail report. And then we want to take a look just at one job, let's say job number 14, and okay. And you'll see now we have a lot more detail within the report. So the estimate now breaking out all of these items. The actual costs now breaking out all these items. Now note, obviously, as we match this up, they're not going to match up great because we've randomly selected the items to match up. So the total estimate will be somewhat close, but the items will not match up because we didn't take a lot of care in the estimate or the actual. But just to see how it works, of course, now we have the estimates lined up and the actual costs will be lined up for them, and we can do a lot more detailed kind of analysis. Although, of course, now the reports are much longer and more complicated, they'll give us that more detail. So our goal is to find that mix of, how detailed do I want the reports, how much information do I need within the reports to give me the information I need to push forward with the job. You're always balancing the time versus the cost of the added information. The next thing we're going to do is enter the beginning balances. So if I go back to my trial balance, I've closed everything out in the open windows to clean everything up. So I've closed everything out here. We're going to go back to the trial balance. We're going to go to the reports drop down. We're going to go to the accounting and taxes and then the trial balance. And then we see the date is going to be 01/01/20 to 12/31/20. Now, these are the numbers we have so far. What we want to do is compare that to the beginning balance numbers we want on our worksheet. So if we go back to Excel, we want the beginning balance of these numbers. Therefore, I'm just going to do a comparison of them and then enter our journal entry. So these are the beginning balance numbers we want. These are what are currently on the trial balance, which is going to be that 83,000 and the equity in 83,000. Now note, I ran this for 2020 because I don't want to basically take a look at the income statement. I just want to run it to the equity section. So I'm going to say that that's going to be our beginning balances, one in cash, the other in equity. These is the journal entry then that we'll enter just like in the prior problem. So we're going to go back to QuickBooks and we're going to do this with a journal entry. We're going to go to the company drop down. We're going to go down to the make journal entry. And then I'm going to make this as of 12/31/19. We're going to start off with the checking account. Checking account, we're going to put a debit of that 383,000. So we're going to put a debit in the checking account, 383,000. And then we're going to say that the next item is going to be factory equipment, which we will have to add. So I'm going to put here, I'm going to type in factory equipment. And tab, set it up. That's going to be a fixed asset type of account. And then we'll say continue. And the amount there is going to be 510. So we'll say 510,000. The next item is going to be the factory overhead or accumulated depreciation. Accumulated depreciation, because that's going to be related to the factory equipment. It's going to be a fixed asset account as well. We're going to say continue and save and close. That's going to have a credit balance according to our worksheet of 153,000. So this will be a credit of 153,000. Next item is going to be the accounts payable. So we're going to type in accounts payable tab, setting that up. That's going to be an accounts payable type of account. So we'll set it up as accounts payable and continue and continue. And that's going to be for a credit of the 45,000. So 45,000. We're going to need a vendor here, which I'm going to say is Home Depot, because we have to have a vendor or QuickBooks won't let us record it. It's going to be a vendor. And then we're going to have the equity section we called capital here, which we're just going to put to our equity section, which is going to be the owner's equity. That's going to be our transaction. Let's save and close it. So I'm going to say save and close. Yes. And okay. Okay. And there we have this. I'm going to refresh this, and there we have it. So we've got now the checking account, the 300,000 in it, and then the factory overhead, the 510, the accumulated depreciation, the 153, the accounts payable, and the owner's equity. That's going to be basically our starting point as of 1/1. So if I change this to 01/01/20, that's going to be our starting point for next time when we'll start entering data in the current period, 2020.